This next tutorial is going to cover lighting and rendering. I've introduced two directional lights by going to Create, Lights, Directional Lights. If you recall, when you introduce a light and you hit W to get the Move tool, there's a vertice in the middle of the light icon. If you were to hit T on the keyboard, it breaks it up into two icons, one which is the source, where the arrows are, and the target, where is the little blue box with the vertices radiating from it. I've gone to the attributes for both lights. I left the intensity of the one at the top at 1. I've opened up the Arnold Render tab in the light source, and I'm making the exposure 1.5. Now, if I have my light selected and I have hit T, my light has two icons. If I duplicate it in this state, Command D, I can leave the target pointing where I'd like it to be and move the source to another location. I've got one above and one below. The one below, I've dropped the exposure to about 0.3. I'm going to go to Arnold and choose the Arnold Render View, click on the red triangle in the upper right hand corner to preview my lighting. That looks pretty good. Now it's a matter of zooming in on this to optimize it. Now the angle is going to be more of a profile, and that'll serve our purposes. Now I'm going to set the render settings. So I'm going to close this out momentarily, and I'm going to go to the gear Hollywood clapboard at the top of the user interface directly below the word deform. I'll click on it. I'm going to make sure that the Arnold render setting is activated. I'm going to name the file, and I'm going to choose an image format that is TIFF, and this is really important. That will give you the alpha information, and it will allow you to integrate your character into After Effects with a background other than black. I'm going to go down and choose the image format, and that will be the last available choice for After Effects, name underscore, frame number, extension. I'm going to set the frame render padding to 3. I'm going to set the start frame to 1 if it's not so already. I'll set the end frame to 50. Now I'm going to click on the Arnold Render tab. Here I'm going to set the camera for 3 and then all the other functions for 2. One other thing I need to do before I set to rendering is to make sure that the path for my images is to a folder where I can retrieve them. If it goes to the Documents, Maya Projects, that's a default setting. You'll want to go to File, Set Project, choose a folder in which to render, and click Set. One other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the aspect ratio of the composition from 960 by 540 to 540 by 540. When I play my animation or drag through the timeline, it is pretty much a square composition. Now what I'm going to do before I actually do my final render, I'm going to go to Window, I'm going to go to Play Blast, and I'm going to choose the attributes. In here I'm going to choose start and end frame 1 through 50. I'm going to set the quality for 50, and I'll leave everything else by default. When I click apply, it will quickly render that series of frames so that I can preview whether I'm cutting off content. I can see I'm losing the top of this, which means I need to zoom back on my composition window. Now I'm going to make one last change, and that is under the Common tab, and I'm going to scroll down and choose 540 by 540. This will make my composition render quicker, and it will also make it square. I'm going to save, and then I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to go to Render and choose Render Sequence.